All right, number 13, we want to solve this equation, and they want us to use a u substitution. So number 13, we have x minus 5 times the square root of x minus 24 equals 0. And then they tell us, hint, to let u equal the square root of x. Okay, so if you let u equal the square root of x, we'll have two different variables. We also need to change this one. So using that same concept, how would I solve for x right here? So if u is equal to the square root of x, and I want to get x by itself, then you would have to square both sides so that you can get x by itself. So you square this side, square that side. This would become u squared, and then this would just get rid of the square root and leave it with x. So there's actually two things. They just give you a hint, but there's two things you have to substitute in. You have to let u equal the square root of x, and then you also have to let u squared equal x. So here we're going to replace this with u squared and then minus 5, and then the square root of x is going to be equal to u minus 24 equals 0. Okay, so now it looks like a quadratic. It didn't right here, but the substitution helps us to envision it a little different. Now we're going to try to factor this. Factors of 24. That will subtract to give you 5. I think those will be 8 and 3. So this will factor. So two sets of parentheses, a u in both. You separate that u squared. And then we're going to put an 8 in one and a 3 in the other. First sign tells you your larger number. The second sign tells you they're different signs. So that's going to be a plus. And then we're going to solve these. So we'll get u equals 8. And then over here we'll get u equals negative 3. Okay. This is not the final answer because our problem started with x, and we need to get this in terms of x. So we need to go back and unsubstitute, or go back to what we originally had. So what was u equal to? Well, they told us u was equal to the square root of x. So we're going to replace this with square root of x. And then we're going to replace this with square root of x. Okay, now before we get our final answer, with square roots you normally want to check them, but look at this. When you take the square root of a number, we really only consider the positive. So when you take the square root of a number, it could be a negative or a positive, what you started with, but for most cases we're going to be considering the positive with the computer. So one of these is going to not work. It's going to be this one, because you can see square root is going to give you a negative. So to get rid of the square root, we have to square both sides in both cases. So you get x equals 64, and then over here you get x equals 9. Now, if you go back and plug these in, which is what you always want to do when you deal with square roots, it looks like both of these will be legit. The 64 will work, the 9 will not. You have to go back and plug it in and solve it and see that it will not give you 0. But 64 will be our answer in this case.